Wild right hands taken on the side of the head of Muhammad Ali.
George Foreman was a broken man. After being the dope, Ali roped in the rumble in the jungle.
Light left taken on the chin of Ali. That wild left hand is not scoring, not getting through. None of those punches are doing any damage at all. None, absolutely none. The left hook to the body, misses the left again, the right to the body, the shoulder of Foreman. It's a combination.
In one historic night, he went from the most feared heavyweight champ since Sonny Liston to just another chapter of greatness for the greatest of all time. George goes through the 5 stages of grief after losing his unbeatable aura. Paranoia ran wild. George's list of grievances ended up with him firing the brain trust that brought him to the title. In an effort to prove he was still a monster, he only made himself more mockable. George would take on 5 heavyweights back-to-back in one night.
There's a lot of publicity. It's not as easy as it looks. You might say, cover up, cover up. George Foreman at the end of the first. Cover up, that's it.
Though the fights were scheduled for 3 rounds, the event quickly devolves into an embarrassment. Muhammad Ali sat ringside, lobbing insults.
Come up! There he goes, down again. 3rd time down. That does not automatically end the fight. Stop the fight. 2nd round, it ended. What is happening there? Foreman is not himself. He's going after the kid again, needlessly, for no reason.
The fans booed.
Terry Daniels, obviously no match. The 3rd of 5 opponents.
The ref looked bought.
Stop it, and the crowd disapproved. Foreman told the referee to stop it. They've started fighting again. The referee off in the corner with the handler. I told you this is the weirdest occasion you'll ever want to see. There you go. Look at that. That's hardly professional, is it?
Ali left before the final fight finished, his words still ringing and stinging in Foreman's cavernous ego. George could beat 5 men in one night, but couldn't beat one Muhammad Ali.
How much did Ali upset you today with his answer?
Not at all, because I'm in the best of shape. I weigh 232 pounds, and I'm feeling like a big heavyweight. No way that powder puff, low down, good for nothing, loud mouth, Mohammed, whatever you call his name, can beat no George Foreman. He's instructing the guys, lay up against the rope. How can you be a champion and lay up against the rope? Man, I'm through talking.
Foreman needed to prove he was still the baddest heavyweight in the world. If he wanted that malevolent reputation, Foreman needed to find somebody with one of their own. George needed to take it from him. Ron Lyle did 7.5 years for a gang-related murder he didn't commit. When he was inside, Ron was stabbed up so bad it took over 30 pints of transfused blood to keep him alive. After the attack, Ron was placed in solitary for 90 days, a period that could drive almost any man to madness. It only made Ron Lyle stronger. Rather than lose his mind to the silence, Ron started doing push-ups, sit-ups, and squats to keep his sanity. He emerged from solitary with a discipline and a physique he'd never had before. Ron Lyle knew what he wanted to do with his life. Released on parole, he goes 25-4 with 17 KOs his first year fresh out.
Well, it worked in fight after fight against pro boxing's nobodies. Ron finally jumped into 4th place among all the heavyweight contenders with this knockout win over Larry Middleton.
He was 30 by the time he got his first pro fight. He made a curious tradition of returning to visit the inmates who occupied his former home before every fight. It put him in the mindset to do what he needed to. He didn't spend a lifetime refining the finer points of the sweet science, Ron had a gift for the Slugfest. The fight that truly proved it was against Ernie Shavers. Shavers was the hardest puncher in human history, according to every opponent he fought. Men who had shared the ring with generational punchers, from Liston to Tyson. Every mutual opponent said Shavers hit hardest. Ron didn't have much choice but to go to war with him. He also wouldn't have had it any other way. Even in the second, when both men reached for a left hook and Ernie came up with his first, Ron rolled over his own knee, and the ropes were the only thing keeping him from falling in the crowd. Ron needed that bell to save him as much as all that donated blood. Ron comes, puts his back to the ropes, and allows the hardest puncher ever the opportunity to punch himself out. Ernie couldn't resist. Ron took his time and his lumps and comes out in round 4 a new man, bullying Ernie to the ropes and opening up, which only makes Shavers throw back even wilder. While Ron has the skills to pull off the rope-a-dope, he also had the resolve to fight his way out when cornered. When Ron goes to the ropes and Shavers refuses to follow him, Ron knows he's out of gas. Ruthless as a shank to the throat, he rushes out the next round and gave Shavers a 10 count before he ever hits the floor. When George Foreman and Ron Lyle met, it was toe-to-toe from the stare-down. Ron Lyle opens up with the biggest, meanest right hand he could. George's fighting style, mockingly dubbed the Mummy by Ali, it was designed to shut down the jab, to catch it in his palms, or use circular motion to deflect it away. George was tall and strong, and it served to get him into mid-range, where he could put his prodigious strength and punching power to their best use. They jabbed, probed, and maneuver for openings. The first round has the feel of a chain crank pulling a roller coaster to the top of the track. Foreman catches the jab in his palm. The chain goes silent as the crack of a Ron Lyle right hand thrown around the open palm echoes off Foreman's skull. From there, all you hear is screaming. Foreman's knees turn to jello, and Ron swarms with a fury. George clamps on to get to the bell. Round 2, George starts on his toes, jabbing and moving. Foreman pivots away from the ropes, double jabs, and throws a right. Ron tries to counter short, but George had already dug his heels in for a sweeping bolo punch that came up from under Lyle's shoulder. Lyle gives ground and goes to the ropes. Rather than go all out for the finish, Foreman tries to pick his punches. Ron is running the rope-a-dope, looking to counter with a right hand at every opportunity. The third opens up even. Until George digs into Lyle with a right to the body, left hook combination that makes Lyle lean into the ropes. Foreman plays patty cake, stepping around Lyle while force-feeding Ron his bowling ball of a jab. Ron was still waiting on that shoulder roll counter. Ron runs his defensive drills with an eye for the cross counter over Foreman's jab and the shoulder roll counter right. Lyle comes out in the fourth, turning the tables. Foreman wasn't falling for the rope-a-dope, so Ron turns up the heat. He lands a right and ducks down to the inside fight. When George tries to disengage with a double jab, Ron pushes his way inside of it and cracks him. George grabs on, and Lyle keeps the gap closed on the clinch break. George tries to jab Lyle away. Ron slips and counters in combination. Foreman tries to circle away. Rather than reset to his usual orthodox stance, Ron continues his attack from southpaw, cutting George off with a leaping hook and dropping him with the sweeping left hand behind it. George's pretense at fighting tall evaporates. His feet come apart in the ferocious exchange, like an artillery piece bracing itself in the earth for stability. Lyle goes down under a barrage of heavy lead. Ron veers into the ropes and tries to run his defensive drill again. Foreman still puts the jab first, just to set up his skip-off to the side so he could arc his horrific hook between Lyle's gloves. Foreman runs out of ammo before the bell. Ron roars back, mixing his heavy hooks and uppercut. George wobbles like a skyscraper in a tornado. Lyle tries to jab as he winds up with a right. Ron slips and rips and ends the round with an exclamation mark. Round 5 is like grizzly bears swiping and clawing for control over some barren patch of tundra. This sprint toward the void had taken the wind out of them. The only true respect they could show for one another was the ruthlessness to end it quickly. Ron threw every ounce of power into Foreman's impassive face. Foreman wades forward like Godzilla out of the water, walks through the same uppercut left hook that rocked him earlier. Chases Lyle into a corner and delivers an unsettling combination that doesn't allow Ron to fall. The fans scream for the right to stop. Ron resigns himself to being a puddle for the next few minutes. Ring Magazine named it Fight of the Year. They later called that hellish fourth round one of the 10 best in history. It remains the gold standard of heavyweight slugfest all these decades later. But George still hadn't found what he was looking for.